Dr. Amanda Blake looked out the window of the hospital ship Nightingale as it moved through space toward the distant planet. Stars filled the darkness around them, but her mind was focused on what waited ahead. The reports were bad. Very bad. "How many are sick now?" she asked Jake Morrison, the ship's head medic. Jake had been doing this work for 15 years. He had seen everything from space plague to alien diseases that could kill in hours. "Last count was over 50,000, Jake said, checking his tablet. "The number keeps going up every hour. We're looking at 17 different species all hit by the same thing." Amanda nodded. At 42, she had led medical missions across the galaxy for the past decade. She had seen wars, plagues, and disasters that would make most people lose hope. But she never stopped believing that medicine could heal any wound, cure any disease, and bring peace to any conflict. The Nightingale was one of Earth's largest hospital ships. It carried enough medical supplies to treat 1 million patients and had the best doctors from across human space. The ship was painted white with large, red crosses on every side. Everyone in the galaxy knew what those symbols meant. Medical ships were neutral. They helped anyone who needed it, no matter which side they fought for or what species they were. "Dr. Blake, we're getting another transmission from the planet," said Tony Garcia from the communication station. Tony was young, maybe 25, but he was good at his job. He could speak 12 different alien languages and could make sense of any radio signal in the galaxy. "Put it through," Amanda said. The voice that came through the speakers was weak and scared. It belonged to Dr. Kelvin Ross, the human doctor who ran the medical station on Kepler 442b. "Amanda, thank God you're coming. We've lost control here. The disease is spreading faster than we can treat it. We have alien children dying in the hallways. Our medicine isn't working on half the species here." Amanda pressed the reply button. "We'll be there in 6 hours, Kelvin. Hold on. Help is coming." She turned to look at her team. Dr. Lisa Park was the best surgeon she had ever worked with. Lisa could operate on any species in the galaxy and had saved more lives than anyone could count. She was quiet and serious, but Amanda trusted her completely. "Lisa, start preparing the surgical units. We'll need all of them running as soon as we arrive." "Already on it," Lisa said without looking up from her medical charts. "I've been studying the reports. This isn't a natural disease. Someone made this thing in a laboratory." That was what Amanda feared. Bioweapons were the worst kind of weapon. They didn't care who they killed. Soldiers, civilians, children. The disease would attack them all the same way. "Any idea who might have done this?" Amanda asked. Jake looked uncomfortable. "The Zephyrian Empire has been pushing into this sector for months. There are rumors they've been testing new weapons on rebel colonies." The Zephyrians were trouble. Their empire was built on conquest and fear. They believed that might made right and that weaker species deserved to be enslaved or destroyed. Most of the galaxy tried to stay out of their way, but they had never attacked medical personnel before. Even the Zephyrians respected the ancient rules that protected doctors and hospitals during wartime. "Dr. Blake, incoming message from Earth Medical Command," Tony called out. Admiral Richard Stone appeared on the main screen. He was the head of Earth's Medical Corps and Amanda's direct superior. Stone had gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was strong and clear. "Amanda, I'm sending you everything we have. 12 more hospital ships are on their way to assist you. This is now the largest medical operation in human history." "Thank you, sir. What about supplies?" "Unlimited. Use whatever you need. The President himself has declared this a priority mission. The whole galaxy is watching how we handle this." Amanda understood. Humanity had built its reputation on being the healers of the galaxy. When disasters struck, humans were always the first to arrive and the last to leave. It was more than just good medicine, it was politics. Being the galaxy's doctors gave Earth influence and respect that military power alone could never achieve. "There's something else," Admiral Stone continued. "We're getting reports that some species are blaming each other for the outbreak. There's talk of retaliation attacks. We need to keep the peace while we work." "Understood, sir." The transmission ended and Amanda gathered her senior staff around the main table. Besides Jake and Lisa, there was Dr. Carl Wilson, their specialist in alien biology, and Commander Beth Campbell, the ship's security chief. "Listen up, everyone," Amanda said. "In 6 hours, we're going to be in the middle of the biggest medical crisis any of us has ever seen. 50,000 patients and counting, 17 different species, and a bioweapon that was designed to kill as many people as possible." She looked at each of them. "We're going to save every life we can. We're going to work 24 hours, a day until this is over. And we're going to show the galaxy what human medicine can do." Jake raised his hand. "What about security? If this really was a Zephyrian weapon, they might not want us fixing their handiwork." Commander Campbell spoke up. "We have escort ships, but they'll stay back. Medical ships are protected by galactic law. Even the Zephyrians wouldn't dare attack a hospital ship." Amanda hoped she was right. The Red Cross had protected human medical teams for over a century. It was unthinkable that anyone would break that ancient agreement. As the Nightingale approached Kepler 442b, Amanda could see the other ships already in orbit. Zephyrian military vessels hung in space like dark sharks, watching everything that happened below. Their ships were built for war with heavy armor and massive weapons, but they kept their distance from the medical ships. The Red Cross still meant something even to them. Amanda didn't know that in just 3 weeks everything would change. She didn't know that the symbol she trusted to protect her would fail for the first time in human history. She didn't know that her death would wake something in humanity that had been sleeping for 50 years. For now, she focused on what she did best: saving lives. 3 weeks had passed since the medical fleet arrived at Kepler 442b. Dr. Amanda Blake wiped sweat from her forehead as she finished treating another patient. The medical bay of the Nightingale was packed with sick aliens from dozens of different species. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking trees, and some were so strange that Amanda still couldn't figure out how their bodies worked. But it didn't matter what they looked like. They were all patients, and they all needed help. "Doctor, we have another transport coming in," called Nurse Jenny Miller from the landing bay. 43 patients this time, mostly children. Amanda's heart sank. The children were always the hardest cases. Their small bodies couldn't fight the bioweapon as well as the adults. Too many had already died despite everything the medical team tried to do. Jake Morrison appeared at her side, carrying a tablet full of patient reports. His face looked tired and sad. 3 weeks of 18-hour days were wearing on everyone. "We've treated over 90,000 patients," Jake said. "The disease is finally slowing down, but we're still losing about 50 people every day." "That's better than the 300 we were losing when we first got here," Amanda replied. She tried to stay positive, but the numbers were hard to ignore. Even with 12 hospital ships working around the clock, they couldn't save everyone. "Doctor." Lisa Park walked over from the surgical area. Her medical uniform was stained with blood from 6 different species. "I just finished operating on a Zephyrian soldier," she said quietly. "He was brought in by his own people. They asked me to save his life." Amanda nodded. That was how medicine worked. It didn't matter if someone was your enemy during the day. When they were hurt and needed help, doctors helped them. The Zephyrian military had been watching the human medical teams work for 3 weeks. Even they seemed impressed by what humans could do. On the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship Iron Fist, Commander Kyle Rodriguez stared at the medical ships through his viewing screen. Kyle was young for a fleet commander, only 38, but he had earned his position through brutality and cunning. The Zephyrian Empire promoted officers who could win battles, not those who showed mercy. "Sir, the humans have saved over 1,200 of our soldiers," reported his aide, Lieutenant Clark Barnes. "They don't ask questions, they just treat anyone who comes to them." Kyle's jaw tightened. He had been ordered to test a new bioweapon on the rebel colonies in this system. The weapon was supposed to target only the rebels, but it had spread to everyone. Now the humans were undoing his work, saving lives that the Empire had meant to eliminate. Worse, the humans were making the Zephyrian Empire look weak. Every species in the galaxy was watching how quickly and effectively the human doctors worked. They were gaining respect and influence with every life they saved. "Commander, we have new orders from High Command," said his communications officer. Kyle read the message on his personal screen. The words made his blood run cold. The Zephyrian High Council was angry that the humans were interfering with their operation. They wanted the medical mission stopped permanently. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Lieutenant Barnes. Kyle stared at the medical ships. The Nightingale was the largest, clearly marked with huge red crosses. Everyone in the galaxy knew what those symbols meant. For over a century, no military force had ever attacked a medical ship. It was the most sacred rule of space warfare. But orders were orders. Kyle had not risen to command by questioning the Empire's decisions. "Prepare the main weapons," Kyle said quietly. "Target the medical ships." Lieutenant Barnes looked shocked. "Sir, those are hospital ships. They're protected by galactic law. If we attack them, every species in the galaxy will turn against us." "Are you questioning my orders, Lieutenant?" Barnes straightened up. "No, sir. Targeting systems ready." On the Nightingale, Dr. Amanda Blake was helping a young alien child when Tony Garcia's voice came over the intercom. "All stations, we're detecting weapons lock from the Zephyrian fleet. This might be some kind of mistake." Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. Weapons lock meant that enemy ships were aiming their guns at them, but that was impossible. Medical ships were neutral. They had been neutral for over 100 years. "Tony, send a message to the Zephyrian commander," Amanda said into her communicator. "Remind them that we are a medical vessel. We're here to help their wounded soldiers too." On the Iron Fist, Kyle heard the human message. For just a moment, he hesitated. Then he thought about his career, his family back on the homeworld, and what would happen if he disobeyed direct orders from high command. "Fire all weapons," Kyle commanded. The first missile hit the Nightingale's engine section. The explosion threw Amanda to the floor of the medical bay. Emergency lights started flashing red as the ship's power systems failed. "We're under attack," Tony's voice screamed over the intercom. "Hull breach on decks 4 and 5. Amanda couldn't believe what was happening. Someone was actually shooting at a hospital ship. It went against everything civilized species believed in. "Jake, we need to evacuate the patients," she yelled over the sound of alarms. But Jake wasn't listening. He was running toward the breach in the hull, carrying emergency patches to seal the hole. "The children's ward is losing air," he shouted back. Another missile hit the ship. This one tore through the main medical bay where Amanda was standing. She saw the wall explode inward, saw the medical equipment flying through the air, saw her patients thrown around like toys. Jake reached the children's ward just as the hull gave way completely. Amanda watched in horror as he threw his own body over a group of young alien patients, using himself as a shield against the rushing air and debris. The emergency doors slammed shut, saving the children, but Jake was gone. Dr. Lisa Park was in surgery when the third missile hit. She was trying to save a Zephyrian officer who had been brought in that morning. When the explosion rocked the ship, she threw herself over her patient to protect him from falling debris. The ceiling collapsed on both of them. Amanda tried to reach the escape pods, but the ship was breaking apart too quickly. She looked around the medical bay one last time and saw her life's work being destroyed. Patients she had spent weeks caring for were floating in space. Medical supplies that could have saved thousands more lives were burning in the wreckage. As the Nightingale died around her, Amanda's last thought was not about her own life. She wondered who would take care of all the patients they had left behind. The attack lasted only 10 minutes. When it was over, the Nightingale and 2 smaller medical ships were nothing but debris floating in space. 847 medical personnel were dead. 2,314 patients had died with them. Captain Beth Sullivan of the heavy cruiser Valiant was the first military ship to reach the wreckage. She had worked with Amanda Blake many times before. They had been friends. Beth stared at the floating bodies and wreckage in disbelief. In her 20 years of military service, she had never seen anything like this. Someone had actually attacked medical ships. Someone had murdered doctors and nurses who were trying to save lives. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command," her communications officer reported. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was cold and hard. "Captain Sullivan, you are to secure the area and document everything. Take pictures of every body, every piece of wreckage. The galaxy needs to see what happened here. Yes, sir. What about the medical mission? There are still sick people on the planet below. Other ships will handle that. You have a different job now. You're going to help us make sure this never happens. Again. Beth didn't understand what that meant, but the tone in the Admiral's voice made her very afraid. She had heard rumors about secret human military programs, things that were hidden even from regular military officers. As she watched the bodies of doctors and nurses float past her ship, Beth realized that something fundamental had just changed in the galaxy. The age of human mercy was ending. Something much darker was about to begin. Admiral Charles Hayes sat in his office deep beneath the surface of Earth, 3 miles below the city of Denver. The room had no windows because sunlight never reached this far underground. The walls were made of metal thick enough to stop nuclear weapons. This was the headquarters of Earth's most secret military division. Charles was 64 years old and had been keeping Earth's darkest secrets for the past 20 years. He had gray hair and scars on his hands from battles that officially never happened. Today, those hands were shaking as he read the report from Kepler 442b. 847 medical personnel killed, he read aloud to the empty room. 2,314 patients murdered while receiving treatment. He set down the report and walked to a wall safe that required his handprint, voice print, and retinal scan to open. Inside was a single red folder marked with symbols that would make most people's blood run cold. The folder contained the activation codes for Operation Reaper. Charles had hoped he would never have to open this folder. For 50 years it had sat in that safe, waiting for a day that he prayed would never come. His secure phone rang. The caller, ID showed only a number that belonged to the President of Earth. "Mr. President?" Charles answered. "Admiral, I assume you've seen the reports from the medical fleet." "Yes, sir. It's the first time in human history that medical personnel have been deliberately targeted during a humanitarian mission." The President's voice was quiet and sad. "Charles, I'm authorizing Protocol 7. The compact has been broken." Charles felt his heart sink. Protocol 7 meant total war. It meant unleashing weapons and soldiers that the galaxy had never seen. It meant breaking the promise that humanity had made 50 years ago when they chose to become healers instead of killers. "Sir, are you absolutely certain? Once we activate the Reapers, there's no going back." "They killed our doctors, Charles. They murdered children who were receiving medical treatment. If we don't respond, every enemy we have will think they can attack our medical ships with no consequences." Charles nodded, even though the President couldn't see him. "I understand, sir. I'll begin activation procedures immediately." After the call ended, Charles opened the red folder and began reading documents that told the true story of humanity's place in the galaxy. 50 years ago, humans had just developed faster-than-light travel and were exploring their first alien worlds. They were excited to meet other species and join the galactic community. But their first contact was not with friendly explorers or wise philosophers. They met the Void Hunters. The Void Hunters were a species that lived only to destroy. They consumed entire planets, killed every living thing they found, and turned whole solar systems into empty graveyards. They had been moving through the galaxy for thousands of years, leaving nothing but death behind them. When the Void Hunters found Earth, they attacked immediately. The war that followed nearly destroyed human civilization. Earth lost 2 billion people in the first year. Entire cities were turned into glass by alien weapons. The oceans boiled and the sky turned black with smoke. But humans had something the Void Hunters didn't expect. They had rage. General Patricia Stone was Earth's top military commander during the war. She was brilliant, ruthless, and completely dedicated to saving humanity. Under her leadership, human engineers developed weapons that could crack planets in half. Human soldiers were trained to fight with a brutality that shocked even the Void Hunters. The war lasted 5 years. When it ended, the Void Hunters were extinct. Every single one of them was dead, along with every planet they had ever lived on. Humanity had committed genocide so complete that it erased an entire species from existence. The other alien races, in the galaxy, watched this war in terror. They realized that humans weren't just another peaceful species looking to trade and explore. Humans were killers on a level the galaxy had never seen. After the war, General Stone made a decision that changed everything. She knew that if humans kept acting like warriors, every other species would unite against them. Earth would face a war against the entire galaxy, and even humans couldn't win that fight. So she made a deal with the galactic community. Humanity would become the healers of the galaxy. They would dedicate themselves to saving lives instead of taking them. They would be the first to respond to disasters and the last to leave crisis zones. In exchange, they would be allowed to keep a small fleet of ships designed for one purpose, making sure nobody ever threatened Earth again. These ships were called Reapers. The Reaper fleet was hidden in a secret base beyond the edge of human space. The ships were built using technology from the Void Hunter War, weapons so advanced that they could destroy entire fleets in minutes. The crews were volunteers who underwent psychological conditioning to remove their capacity for mercy or doubt. For 50 years, the Reapers had waited in the darkness. The galaxy knew they existed, but nobody talked about them. As long as humans kept their promise to be healers, the Reapers would stay hidden. But now medical ships had been attacked. The compact was broken. Charles activated his secure communication system and sent a single message to the Reaper base. The message contained only a number, 847, the number of medical personnel who had died. 3 hours later, he received a reply from Captain Danny Wright, commander of the stealth destroyer Silent Death. Danny was 35 years old and had been a Reaper for 12 years. He had never seen combat, but he had trained every day for this moment. Admiral, all Reaper units are ready for activation. We await your orders. Charles looked at the pictures from Kepler 442b one more time. He saw the bodies of doctors floating in space. He saw the wreckage of hospital ships. He saw children who had died while receiving medical treatment. Captain Wright, you are authorized to begin Reaper operations. Target, the Zephyrian Empire. Rules of engagement, none. Understood, Admiral. No survivors? Charles thought about Dr. Amanda Blake, who had dedicated her life to saving others. He thought about Jake Morrison, who had died protecting alien children. He thought about all the medical personnel who had chosen to heal instead of harm. No survivors, he confirmed. In the Reaper base, alarms began sounding for the first time in 50 years. Captain Wright walked through corridors that had been silent for decades. His crew was already at their stations, preparing systems that hadn't been used since the Void Hunter War. Nicole Barnes, his tactical officer, looked up from her weapons console. All systems online, Captain. We're ready to show the galaxy what happens when you kill our doctors. Steve Collins, the chief engineer, reported from the engine room. Stealth systems at full power. They won't see us coming until it's too late. Captain Wright sat in his command chair and looked at the star map showing Zephyrian space. In a few hours, his ship would begin a journey that would end with the complete destruction of an entire empire. Set course for the first target, he ordered. It's time to remind the galaxy why they should fear us. The Silent Death disappeared into the darkness between stars, followed by 11 other Reaper ships. They moved without making a sound, invisible to every sensor in the galaxy. The age of human mercy was over. The age of human vengeance had begun. On Earth, Admiral Charles Hayes sat alone in his underground office and tried not to think about what he had just unleashed. He had spent 50 years hoping this day would never come. But it had come, and now the galaxy would learn the price of killing Earth's healers. Captain Danny Wright stood on the bridge of the Silent Death as his ship moved through space toward the first Zephyrian target. The ship was completely invisible to all sensors, sliding through the darkness like a ghost. For 12 years, Danny had trained for this moment. Now it was finally here. Target in sight, Captain, reported Nicole Barnes from her tactical station. Military base Zeta 7, approximately 50,000 personnel. Danny looked at the base through his viewing screen. It was huge, with massive weapons platforms and hundreds of fighter ships. In a normal battle, it would take an entire fleet to destroy a base like this, but the Reapers weren't normal ships. Tactical, prepare the gravity cannon, Danny ordered. The Gravity cannon was a weapon that the galaxy had never seen before. It could create a small black hole that would consume everything within 100 miles. The humans had built it using technology taken from the Void Hunters 50 years ago. Gravity cannon ready, sir. All personnel are secured for firing. Danny thought about Dr. Amanda Blake and all the medical personnel who had died trying to save lives. He thought about the alien children who had been murdered while receiving treatment. His anger felt cold and sharp like a blade made of ice. Fire. The gravity cannon fired silently. A small sphere of pure darkness appeared next to the Zephyrian base. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the base began to stretch and twist as the artificial black hole pulled it apart atom by atom. 50,000 Zephyrian soldiers died in less than 30 seconds. They didn't have time to scream or send a distress signal. One moment they were there, and the next moment they weren't. Target destroyed, Nicole reported. No survivors detected. Good, set course for the next target. Across Zephyrian space, 11 other Reaper ships were carrying out similar attacks. The heavy destroyer Phantom Strike attacked a shipyard that built military vessels. Captain Maria Lopez used a weapon called a molecular disruptor that simply made the entire facility cease to exist. The stealth cruiser Night Terror hit a training academy where young Zephyrians learned to become soldiers. Captain Robert Kim fired plasma torpedoes that burned so hot they turned the entire planet's surface into glass. Each attack lasted only minutes. The Reaper ships would appear without warning, destroy their target completely, and vanish back into the darkness. The Zephyrian military had no time to react, no chance to fight back, and no idea what was killing them. Commander Kyle Rodriguez, the officer who had ordered the attack on the medical ships, was stationed on battle platform Omega-9 when the Reapers found him. The platform was supposed to be the most secure location in Zephyrian space, protected by shields that could stop any known weapon. Kyle was in his office, reading reports about the mysterious attacks on military bases, when his aide, Lieutenant Barnes, rushed in. "Sir, we're detecting some kind of energy signature approaching the platform." Kyle looked at his tactical display but saw nothing. "Are you sure? I don't see anything on sensors." "That's just it, sir. Whatever it is, our sensors can't detect it properly, but the energy readings are off the charts." Kyle felt a chill run down his spine. For 3 weeks, Zephyrian military installations had been disappearing without explanation. Each time there were no survivors and no evidence of what had attacked them, just empty space where important bases used to be. "All stations go to maximum alert," Kyle ordered. "Raise shields and prepare all weapons," but it was already too late. The silent death materialized directly above the battle platform, so close that Kyle could see individual weapon ports on its hull. The ship was black as space itself and covered with weapons that looked like nothing in any military database. Unknown. Vessel, this is Commander Rodriguez of the Zephyrian Empire. Identify yourself immediately. Captain Wright's voice came over the communication system. It was calm and cold. "This is Captain Wright of the Earth vessel Silent Death. You are Commander Kyle Rodriguez, the man who ordered the attack on our medical ships." Kyle's blood turned to ice. "I don't know what you're talking about. 3 weeks ago, you ordered the destruction of the hospital ship Nightingale and 2 medical frigates. 847 medical personnel died. You killed doctors who were trying to save lives." Kyle tried to think of something to say, some way to negotiate or surrender, but Wright wasn't finished talking. "You broke the most sacred rule of civilized warfare. You attacked healers. Now you will pay the price." The Silent Death began firing every weapon it had. Plasma beams that could cut through any armor, missile swarms that moved faster than light, energy weapons that the Zephyrians had never seen. Before Kyle watched his battle platform, the most powerful military installation in the Empire, get torn apart like paper. The shields that were supposed to protect them lasted less than 10 seconds. The weapons that were supposed to defend them couldn't even target the human ship. As the platform broke apart around him, Kyle tried one last desperate transmission. "Please, we can negotiate. The Empire will pay reparations, we'll punish those responsible." Wright's reply was the last thing Kyle ever heard. "You are those responsible, and there is no negotiation." The battle platform exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 star systems away. Kyle and 15,000 other Zephyrian soldiers died instantly. The attacks continued for 2 weeks. Every major Zephyrian military base was destroyed. Every shipyard, every training facility, every command center was reduced to debris. The Sci Reaper ships moved like angels of death, appearing wherever Zephyrian forces gathered and leaving only empty space behind. The Zephyrian Emperor Marcus Vale watched the destruction from his palace on the homeworld. He was an old man who had ruled the empire for 30 years through fear and violence. He had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved millions of beings. But now he was afraid. "How many bases have we lost?" he asked his military advisor. "All of them, Your Majesty. Every military installation outside the home system has been destroyed. We've lost over 2 million soldiers and our entire deep space fleet." The Emperor stared at the reports in disbelief. In 2 weeks, the most powerful military in this sector of the galaxy had been completely destroyed. The humans had done something that no enemy had ever managed to do. They had broken the Zephyrian Empire. "What about our home defense fleet?" "Still intact, sir. The human ships haven't approached the home system yet." The Emperor tried to think of options. He could try to negotiate, but the humans hadn't responded to any of his messages. He could try to flee, but where could he go that the humans wouldn't find him? "Send a message to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them I'm willing to discuss terms for peace." But the message that came back was not from Earth's government. It was from Admiral Charles Hayes, and it contained only one sentence. "There are no terms. There is only justice." That night, the Silent Death and 5 other Reaper ships appeared at the edge of the Zephyrian home system. They didn't attack immediately. Instead, they sent a message that was broadcast to every planet in the system. Captain Wright's voice echoed across Zephyrian space. "People of the Zephyrian Empire, your military is gone. Your fleets are destroyed. Your leaders ordered the murder of medical personnel, and they have paid the price. Your homeworld will not be harmed, but your empire is finished. Any attempt to rebuild your military will result in your complete destruction." The Reaper ships stayed in the system for 3 days, making sure everyone understood the message. Then they disappeared back into the darkness, leaving behind a civilization that had been built on conquest and was now defenseless. The galaxy watched in shock as news of the Zephyrian Empire's destruction spread. In 2 weeks, the humans had done what no other species thought possible. They had taken the most aggressive military power in this region and simply erased it from existence. Other species that had thought about challenging human medical ships quickly changed their minds. The message was clear: attack Earth's healers and face complete annihilation. In his underground office on Earth, Admiral Charles Hayes read the final report from the Reaper fleet. The mission was complete. The Zephyrian military no longer existed, but Hayes didn't feel victorious. He felt tired and sad. For 50 years, humanity had been the galaxy's healers. Now they had shown their true nature as destroyers. The compact was broken, and it could never be repaired. The age of human mercy was over forever. 6 months after the destruction of the Zephyrian Empire, Admiral Charles Hayes stood before the Galactic Council on the space station Unity 7. Representatives from 43 different species sat in a huge circular chamber, all of them staring at the human who had unleashed the Reapers. Charles was tired. The past 6 months had been the hardest of his life. Every day brought new questions from Earth's government, demands for explanations from alien governments, and reports from across the galaxy about how the balance of power had changed. The Galactic Council chamber was silent as Charles walked to the center speaking platform. He could feel the fear and anger radiating from the alien representatives. Some species were terrified of what humans might do next. Others were furious that humans had kept such powerful weapons secret for 50 years. Ambassador Krell of the Tarthan Federation spoke first. The Tarthans looked like giant crabs and had always been suspicious of human intentions. "Admiral Hayes, your species has lied to this council for half a century. You claim to be peaceful healers while secretly maintaining a fleet of superweapons." Charles nodded slowly. "That's correct. We kept the Reaper fleet secret because we hoped we would never need to use it." "But you did use it. said Ambassador Vex of the Crystalline Collective. The Crystallines were beings of pure energy, who valued logic above all else. You completely destroyed an entire empire. 2 million beings are dead because of your actions. 2 million soldiers who served an empire that murdered medical personnel, Charles replied. His voice was calm, but there was steel in it. The Zephyrian Empire broke the most sacred law of civilized warfare. They attacked doctors who were trying to save lives. Ambassador Thorne of the Aquatic Alliance raised one of her tentacles to speak. We understand your anger, Admiral, but your response was excessive. You could have demanded justice through proper channels. Charles looked around the chamber at all the alien faces staring at him. Some showed fear, others anger, and a few showed something that might have been respect. Proper channels, he repeated. Like the ones that have failed to stop aggression for the past century. The Zephyrians conquered 12 worlds in the last 10 years. They enslaved entire species. They used bioweapons against civilian populations. Where were these proper channels then? The chamber fell silent. Charles continued speaking, his voice growing stronger. For 50 years, humanity has been your doctors, your peacekeepers, your rescuers. We have saved billions of lives across the galaxy. We have asked for nothing in return except the right to heal the sick and injured. When that right was violated, we responded the only way we could. Ambassador Krell slammed one of his claws on his desk. By committing genocide, by protecting the institution of medicine itself, Charles shot back. If we had done nothing, every warlike species in the galaxy would have learned that they could attack medical ships with no consequences. How many more doctors would have died? How many more patients would have been murdered while receiving treatment? Dr. Rebecca Murphy, the new head of Earth's Medical Corps, stood up from the human delegation section. She had volunteered to replace Dr. Amanda Blake and rebuild the medical fleet. At 38, she was young to hold such an important position, but she had the same dedication to healing that Amanda had shown. May I speak, Admiral? She asked. Charles nodded and stepped aside. Rebecca walked to the center of the chamber, her medical uniform bright white with red crosses on the shoulders. Honored delegates, she began. I want to tell you about Dr. Amanda Blake. She spent 15 years saving lives across the galaxy. She treated patients from every species represented in this chamber. She never asked if they could pay, never cared what side they fought for, never turned away anyone who needed help. Rebecca's voice grew stronger as she continued. Dr. Blake died trying to evacuate patients from her medical bay. Jake Morrison, our head medic, died using his own body to protect alien children from explosive decompression. Dr. Lisa Park died shielding a Zephyrian soldier she was operating on. The chamber was completely silent now. Some of the alien representatives looked uncomfortable. These people died because they believed in something greater than war, greater than politics, greater than the differences between our species. They believed that all life was worth saving. When the Zephyrian Empire murdered them, they didn't just kill 800 people. They attacked the very idea that healing should be protected. Rebecca looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. So yes, humanity responded with overwhelming force. We destroyed an entire military empire, and we did it to send a message that will echo through the galaxy for 1,000 years. Touch our healers and face extinction. Ambassador Vex of the Crystalline Collective spoke in their mechanical voice. What assurance do we have that humanity will not use these weapons against other species? Admiral Hayes stepped forward again. The same assurance you've had for 50 years. As long as medical personnel are respected and protected, the Reaper fleet will remain hidden. But if anyone attacks our doctors, our nurses, our hospital ships, or our patients, they will face the same fate as the Zephyrian Empire. He paused and looked around the chamber one more time. This is not a threat. This is a promise. We prefer to heal, but we remember how to kill. The Galactic Council voted that day to establish new protocols for medical protection. The Universal Medical Protection Act made attacking medical personnel a crime against all civilized species. Any government that harmed doctors, nurses, or hospital ships would face immediate action from the entire galactic community. But everyone knew the real enforcement would come from humanity's hidden fleet. 3 months later, Dr. Rebecca Murphy, stood on the bridge of the new hospital ship Nightingale II. The ship was larger and more advanced than the original, with better medical equipment and stronger defenses. But most importantly, it carried a quantum communicator linked directly to Admiral Hayes's office on Earth. Dr. Murphy were receiving a distress call from the Kepler system, reported Communications Officer Paul Grant. Asteroid impact on a AO mining colony. Estimated casualties in the thousands. Rebecca nodded. Set course immediately. And Paul, send word to the other medical ships in this sector. We'll need all the help we can get. As the Nightingale Seku jumped to faster than light speed, Rebecca thought about the price that had been paid for the safety of her mission. An entire empire had been destroyed to protect the right to heal. It was a terrible burden, but it was also a sacred trust. In the depths of space, Captain Danny Wright sat in his command chair aboard the Silent Death. The Reaper fleet had returned to its hidden base after completing their mission, but they remained ready. The ships were maintained. The crews were trained and the weapons were kept sharp. Danny hoped he would never have to use them again. But if someone attacked Earth's healers, if someone murdered doctors who were trying to save lives, the Reapers would emerge from the darkness once more. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Medical ships now traveled under the protection of the most powerful military force anyone had ever seen. The Red Cross symbol that marked human hospital ships had become more than just a sign of neutrality. It had become a warning: touch the healers and face the Reapers. As the Nightingale II approached the disaster zone, Dr. Murphy prepared her medical teams for another long mission of saving lives. She carried bandages and medicine, surgery tools and life support equipment. But she also carried something else: the absolute certainty that no one would ever again dare to attack her while she worked. The age of human mercy had returned, but now it was protected by the promise of human vengeance. It was a cold peace, built on fear and destruction, but it was peace nonetheless. And in a galaxy full of violence and war, sometimes that was the best anyone could hope for.